everyone. So I will call the meeting to order. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we have the fire chief search committee at 5:35. So we've got a couple minutes there. Chris, do you have anything for us quickly that you can do?
Got a new frame rental. It is for August 2nd, 2022. It will be a summer concert. Maximum number of people is 100. It will be in the gazebo and lawn area. The pavilion is necessary. Arriving at 4:30 p.m. and departing at 8:15 p.m. No alcohol is authorized. We've got a couple of entertainment licenses. Number 22-04 for the GRANBY Preservation Society, 250 State Street, GRANBY, Mass. 01033. It is the entertainment license to provide entertainment to customers as follows. Live entertainment consisting of a DJ behind the main building between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. only, located at 250 State Street, GRANBY, Mass. for car shows. Expires December 31st, 2022. And then I have number 22-05 for Red Fire Farm, Ryan Boylan, 107 Carver Street, GRANBY, Mass. 01033. Fee $50. For an entertainment license for live entertainment consisting of a DJ or small bands, 12 p.m. till 6 p.m. only, for August 2022 Tomato Festival, to be located at 7 Carver Street, GRANBY, Mass. Expires December 31st, 2022. For the GRANBY Preservation Society, the fee is $50, and I am requesting that the fee be waived due to the fact that they are a nonprofit.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the entertainment license for 22-4, expiring on 12/31/22, and 22-5, expiring on 8/22/22.
No, expires December.
Oh, that's when the event is, sorry.
Yes.
Expires on the 12/31/22.
Yes, sir. And to waive the fee for the GRANBY Preservation Society.
And also waive the fee on 22-4, GPA.
Is there a second?
I'll second Rick's motion.
Is there any discussion?
No.
Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
It's now 5:35.
It's now 5:35. Good timing. All righty. Who do we have for the fire chief search committee? Mrs. Randall, come on up.
Would you want to take that? Because you get called on camera.
I'll speak loudly.
Here, I'll turn my mic out.
Good evening. So I am representing the Fire Chief Search Committee. We have been working diligently to review applicants and start our interview process. In that interview process, we have come across a couple of stumbling blocks that need some clarification before we move forward. Those two stumbling blocks may be familiar to you, as I know Rick has mentioned them in the past, especially when we were reposting. They were talking points at that time. So the two pieces are the minimum education requirement and the residency. So while, if we look at the candidates that we're receiving, active candidates that we have, none of those candidates meet the minimum requirement of the bachelor's degree in fire science that is set forth in the job description by the personnel board. And that was in the job posting that was approved by the select board. We do have some candidates that are bachelor's in progress at different levels, but have not completed their bachelor's degree yet. When we look at industry leaders, when you look at fire service, while there is a benefit to having a bachelor's degree or higher, it's not always necessary for performing the duties of the job when you have the proper certifications and the proper rank and command experience. And we do find that these candidates have those other things, but what we're coming across at this point is that they don't have that bachelor's degree. Fire service professionals take industry-specific courses. They receive industry-specific certifications and designations. They receive industry-specific training, and they have professional development, typically annually, to learn best practices or to continue with the training that they've received. So the first ask of the night is, should we come across candidates that we feel meet the leadership, have the leadership history, have the command experience, have the other certifications that are required on the job posting and job description, is the select board willing to waive the minimum education requirement?
Does anybody have a copy of the posting with them? I haven't been mine.
You got it on the card.
Chris, do you happen to have a copy of the posting with you?
No, on me.
In that big box of things?
Not on me.
I just want to take a look at how it was written. It was so long ago, I don't remember.
Don't be hold it. I'm looking at the public.
Oh, Kathy's gonna go get it for me. Thank you, Kathy.
Just taking a stare at it.
So while you're looking, I mean, I can give you some of the, the trainings and certifications, some of the things also that we were looking for in a candidate. And then, our industry professionals that are on our committees, the folks that do the jobs, provided this feedback. So when you look at a firefighter 1-2, you're talking 1,200 hours of training, basic EMT 220 hours plus professional development. Your ICS, which is your incident command, there's 4 levels. That's nearly 100 hours, 96 hours. Hazmat, 24 hours. Fire prevention officer, again, there's 24 hours for the first year and then additional hours after that. Fire officer 1 and 2, a total of 48 hours. So when you're looking and when you start adding up the certifications of the candidates, you're looking at thousands of hours of training. That is more specific, I think, to what it is that they would be doing on a daily basis as far as the command and the leadership of the department.
And that's just on the fire side, but there's also the EMT.
Right. So, and just, I guess, as a matter of moving along, the other situation is the residency. And what's been coming up with the residency is that it's been somewhat of a deal breaker with candidates as far as a concern. Maybe some are settled in neighboring communities, or just even the housing market here in town is difficult with the salary and what have you. And if you recall, the committee had asked at the time of the reposting that we look at a 5-mile radius from the public safety department as the residency. And we're asking to reconsider that again. We've actually lost at least one candidate due just to the residency issue. And so looking at, again, the folks that we have an eye on and the folks that we're starting to talk to, we're looking for some flexibility in the residency piece as far as looking out at a 5-mile radius from the station.
I'm sorry, you said you were looking for a 5-mile?
5-mile radius. And we did kind of do a little bit of research about what, where 5 miles might be. If you're looking at, like, the Plains School area of South Hadley is 3.9 miles. There's, like, in the 200 area of Pearl Street in South Hadley, that's 4.3 miles. Woodbridge Street, 3.3 miles. If you look over in Belchertown, there's, like, the Tractor Supply area is just right outside of the 5 miles. We have points in town that are actually farther out. So Harris Street is farther than 5 miles. The corner of, Munsing Ridge and Carver Street is farther than 5 miles. So when we consider keeping people within the constraints of the town boundary, they might actually be closer in some neighboring areas. So that is the second ask of the committee.
Jen, you looking at discussing that now, or tabling it?
Let's just get it discussed. It's here. Let's get it discussed.
I'd appreciate that. We do have folks that we'd like to continue to interview and do some follow-ups with, and if we don't have these answers, then it really stalls our process, and which stalls your process, so.
Let's start with the minimum education requirement. So the posting states, minimum education required is a bachelor's degree in fire sciences or related field and more than 10 years progressive experience in a fire department that provides fire and EMS services or equivalent combination of education and experience. Which leaves a lot of ambiguity.
It does.
Well, it's left that way to give the ability
Correct.
people not just to focus on it. So if someone has, if someone happened to be, for instance, a captain in a fire department but doesn't have a degree, but that person has 25 years of service and, and then has supervisory experience for 15 years,
Right.
that's something we would consider. That's the, to look at, the equivalent or that just meaning that it had to be a degree.
And so I guess where I was going with that is we would leave it up to the committee to their best judgment since it's or equivalent. So if those candidates have, like Glenn was saying, 15, 20 years of supervisory experience,
Are you putting a specific amount of time on? Because when I go back to the committee, we're meeting again tomorrow. When I go back to the committee and say it's up to our best judgment and our understanding of how we're determining that. But I'm hearing 15 and 20 years. Is that a number you're putting on that, or are you going to leave that to the folks on the committee to understand what look at the rank of the individual, how long that they've been?
I personally would leave that. I would leave you looking with time in the supervisory capacity at that current rank, what you served at previous ranks. If we're going based on this, if you don't have a degree, we're not going to look for someone who's only been in their role for a year. If that makes sense?
That's clearer for me.
Is that what you guys are interpreting?
Yeah, my thought is that this board has tasked that committee with bringing forward people that are candidates that they feel are that have the ability to perform the position.
Okay.
So that's based on what you're seeing throughout interviewing them and throughout looking at their resumes and things like that. So that's what the committee's been tasked with and trust with, that then you bring those back to the board. So if you're looking at someone and throughout an interview process, and again, just throwing out numbers,
Mhm.
you know, someone was a lieutenant for 5 years, but gee, he just, you know, wowed you throughout the interview, and that, him or her, that knowledge that person possessed, and, you know, the ability, and they talked about, you know, what they see in the department, what they see for the future. That's what you guys, if that's what you're hearing, and that, gee, this is a great person that we want to bring forward, then you bring them forward.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Does that answer?
It does. I think
That would
we've
help
been
us out.
using our discretion, but I think for protecting our use of time, our candidates' time, and then your time, we wanted to be very clear before we put someone who we felt was very capable through, and then we didn't want to find at the end that, you know, it was going to be an issue that maybe the minimum requirement wasn't being met in that case. So,
That's appreciated. No one likes to waste time.
So what about the mileage, guys?
We had discussed this at one point.
Because,
Uh,
and exactly what you talked about, we said there's parts of Granby that are more than 5 miles from the.
Yeah. I don't necessarily
the
know
complex.
that I need a mile radius.
Time.
I'm content with time,
We
response
talked about
time.
that.
right, so, I mean, I think also too, to consider, when you're responding to something, it's not like you and I driving to the post office, someone has red lights and you're assuming that folks are, you know, moving out of the way, so there is some sort of quicker response time than just your typical travel time as well.
Well, and I guess where I'm going with that is you're giving us a potential 5-mile radius. If we had said, I don't know, I'm just going to pick a number, I don't even know if it's an appropriate response time, but you guys would know that. Let's just say we're saying you have to be able to respond within 10 minutes. That could potentially put you outside of that 5-mile radius, depending on where you are, where you live.
Sure.
You know, is it the highway? Are you looking at back roads? Are you looking at road closed? Things like that.
I think the committee has been pretty constant in thinking that 5 miles was an appropriate amount, and that 5 miles does put, it's 10 minutes or less based on the spots that we kind of tried to plot out. But again, even some of those corners of our town are 10 minutes in.
Right.
So, you know, again, we're looking for some clarification on that because we're getting feedback from our candidates that it could be a deal breaker. We've tried to encourage them that perhaps it was a matter of negotiation at your table, but we also want to, again, be able to say confidently that it's not necessarily residency in town, it's residency within 5 miles of the public safety complex, and giving people a little bit of flexibility in that sense.
So I guess where I am, and is not to put a mile on it or residency on it. I'm looking at that we have the best qualified and the best fit person for the position.
As are we.
So, and I hate to say, you know, if we have 4, you know, I'm just throwing things out there.
Sure.
Just to be accurate. So we have 4 people that are that we're looking at and reviewing, and I wouldn't say, gee, this person lives 3 miles away, but how about this other person lives 8 miles away? But gee, that person's just a great really qualified for the job. I think, you know, what that person's vision is for the department, I think that'd be a great fit for it. I wouldn't want this board to rule out something like that. And again, I look for the best qualified, best fit person to, you know, for that position. It's a department leader. That's what I'm looking at, someone that's going to do the job and do it well.
And that's been the theme, I think, of our committee so far. I mean, we said early on, we're not looking for the okayest, we're looking for the best. And that's why we've been taking our time, that's why we're triple checking on things, because that is the intention.
Right. And here's the other piece that I look at as far as that. You may have the best qualified person I'm looking at, but that person lives 45 minutes away.
Right.
Well, in that case, that person's not the best fit, based on what we need for that position, from that person.
But a person who's out of town, further out of town, could move closer. It's just a matter of depending on
Right.
where closer is.
Sure. Exactly.
So you guys should know that we're not getting a lot of applicants into this. And
That's not surprising.
from what I've been hearing, they're not moving. The residency problem was the class. So if we ever have to repost it again, at a cost of $1,000+, it's an issue right now. We're looking at it. Several of them are pretty decent candidates. And one of them said he's got kids in nearby school, and that's a deal breaker. Well, another one who lives, I think he told me 1.9 miles away, withdrew. He's got a nice house out in the nearby town, and he's not going to live.
But it happens, and
It does.
I can.
But that's just the issue we're running into, because that's how it was presented in all the postings that we did, residency required.
And I can tell you from when we did the posting for the police chief, we had people from other states putting it forward, knowing they hadn't moved here.
We also had one candidate do a realty.com search of houses here, and it's like, there's not a lot of choices here in Granby that's affordable.
You get that, that's why I said, to me, it's, we can look at the best qualified, best fit for the department. And
No, I
for the
get that,
position.
yeah, we're not gonna give you a.
No, and I'm not saying, I'm not saying the committee is not, that's what I'm saying, but when it comes down to it, that's what we're gonna look at. And I mean, at least myself, and I feel the board will probably look at, is that what makes the most sense for it. Again, I would say, if I'm looking at two people, and they're very similar, and, one person lives, 10 minutes away, the other person lives 45 minutes away, well, even though, for instance, the person that lives 10 minutes away has 3 years less experience as a supervisor than the person who lives 45 minutes away. Well, again, we look at what's the best, to me, I look at what's the best fit for the town.
That's how we look at it.
Well, right,
I get what
and
you're saying.
It's
I get what you're
look
saying.
at the whole picture.
That your 45-minute candidate, we would be sure that we were saying 45 minutes is too far out. Before you go to the board, you need to be considering that.
These are just numbers I'm throwing out.
No, I'm just,
Yeah.
the general number we're
Yeah.
talking about, that we would be encouraging that person, that is not an appropriate amount of distance, and that they would need to be moving closer.
Right.
All right.
All right, I just have, I don't know, do we remember, it's been so long, when we put this back out, the date?
The closing date?
No, when we put out when we reposted, I believe we approved a new posting, correct?
It was just right after Christmas. It was, so it went up, I believe, just before the start of the new year.
Okay. And the reason that I'm asking is because the one that we have here must be an old one because there is no residency report.
Yeah, I think that might, I'd
Say
say,
unless there's not.
Okay, making sure. Because I'm like looking at this going, are we having a discussion for no reason?
Oh, no, there's a reason.
I think this was the first issue one.
Okay, so we added it to the second.
It was added to the second, yes.
Why was it added to the second?
Because we were told it needed to be added to the second.
Because we didn't want someone living 45 minutes away.
And we don't either.
And if someone's responding, our fire department, our fire force, is, if someone's responding, we want them to be able to, where, most of the time, the chief's gonna be showing up on scene for a lot of it.
One would hope.
Well, that's what I mean, so if that person's too far away, then that's why we talked about how far we wanted them.
That's what I'm
That's why it
saying.
came into discussion.
Okay, I couldn't remember how it got in there. So does that give you your answers to go back?
Yeah, that gives us some flexibility. It gives us more of a focus, and I think it allows us to keep moving with what we're working on, and feel more confident before we send folks your way. So,
How long do you think it'll be before you're able to send people our way?
well, the posting doesn't close until the 14th.
Right.
We have our process is 2 steps.
Okay.
So we're meeting with folks for a first round interview, and then and again, before we moved along, we wanted to clarify these things. individuals that we feel that we want to bring back. We have some different questions and scenario questions for them to come back for a second round. And after those second rounds would be when we would recommend our finalists to you guys. So I'd say we're a couple weeks out at least at this point, given that it's not closed yet technically. Assuming that maybe there's somebody else that comes into the hopper, and at that point we would, look at them the same way that we've been looking at everybody else.
So potentially mid-March, late March? I know.
Potentially. I mean, I don't want, I'm not going to say for certain.
But also, Jennifer, if we're looking for a time frame and we need somebody, then we need to say this is the cutoff date. Because when's the posting open till?
The 14th,
The 14th of February.
yes.
So if we're saying, this board should be saying, by March 15th, we want the names in front of us, that's what we need to do.
Even if
Well,
we aren't the
in
best
all-
candidate, but
I was going to say, in all fairness,
What's
I
that?
think the committee is working toward finding the best person. And we understand that there's a deadline, but we're not motivated by the deadline to push people forward. If they're not the right person, they're not coming in front of you.
But but again, it's the closing is the 14th, and all the applications are ready. That's the closing of it, so you won't be receiving any more applications for the position after the 14th.
that's correct.
Yes.
Right. So there's got to be a time frame to say, okay, we need the interview process all set and done by this certain date, and those names to the select board, so the select board can act on the position.
I think what I'm saying is that while we are looking at individuals and we're currently interviewing individuals, I cannot tell you for certain that those are the folks that we're putting forward, or not. I hear what you're saying, I hear that there is a deadline, but we're also not going to push people forward if we're uncertain just because of the deadline.
I wouldn't expect you to push any names forward that you're uncertain about. However, we have responsibility as a select board to fill a position, our chief of our fire department. And that's going to, we need to make sure that we have someone in place when our current chief will not be there any longer. We want to make sure we have the ability to bring someone in, to a smooth transition. So as a select board, that's what we got to look at.
Understood?
So that's why I'm saying there needs to be a time frame. We can't just leave it open-ended. We need to say, okay, interviews need to be done by this certain date. You may come back and say, you know what? Any of the candidates that we've interviewed, we really don't fit. We really don't feel that they're right for the position. And then at that time, the select board can say, okay, well, give us a couple names so we can at least talk to a few of the people that we want to talk to. And that may be it. But at that time, there needs to be a date.
No,
We can't just leave it out open-ended.
I understand what you're saying, but now I'm getting, I don't know, based on what I'm hearing, and I'm not holding the committee to any of this, I'm just based on what I'm hearing that we are not confident that any of the current candidates we have would be sent our way.
No.
Okay.
Let me be very clear.
Thank you, because I was getting
I think
really
that
fast
we have
on it.
candidates that we're very interested in. We have not made final decisions on anybody to put anybody forward yet. It's still a work in progress. So I don't want to say that the people in the pool right now are not potentials to come forward as finalists. What I'm saying is that we are not working under the pressure of, because we have to have names, we have to just send them. We want to make sure that they are the right people. And so we are vetting that and making sure that we're taking the time to make sure we're confident as a committee sending them forward.
Okay.
If you need to give us a deadline in March, we will work to the deadline. But with the understanding that we may come to you and say, here are 3 or 4 or 6 great candidates, or we may come and say, we only had 2 or 1 or 0. It's still a process and we're not done with it.
We can't really put a date on until after the 14th. But we've started the interview process, I'll tell you guys that right now.
Well, no, we could put a date on it. We could arbitrarily say, it closes the 14th, by the 15th, we want everything you've got, good or bad, give it to us. I understand that we want the best candidate for the town, but we also need to understand that we need a chief in place. We cannot run a town without a chief. We can't do it. So I don't want you guys
I
to
understand.
feel that you're working to a deadline just to work for an arbitrary deadline. There comes a point where we have to realize that this pool of applicants is all we're going to get. So we may have to be, who is the best of this pool? Because we cannot go back out.
Even if they're not the best.
They're the best of who's applying. I mean, this is now our second round. We look at when we did our first intro, we didn't have many responses. And maybe that's what we need to look at, why we're not getting them.
So,
I don't know.
I'm not concerned with the applicants, who you have,
Right.
what they're qualified. I don't care about any of that. Right now, I don't need to know any of that information. What I need for this board to look at is a date that we say we have all the information in from the committee. This is who the committee is recommending. If the closing date is February 14th, we need from the committee to say, okay, the closing date is February 14th. We're going to need 3 weeks to make sure we can look at everybody's resume, make sure everybody's interviewed, whether it's a first interview or a second interview, we should be all done by then. We will have the names to by this date. We can't have it open-ended and go a month from now and say, well, we're not ready yet. We can't, we need to set a date to move
We
forward.
can give it, the candidates, and are they using your words, the best fit for the job?
6 o'clock.
That was my firefighters in the room.
So,
So,
We can do what you're asking for.
the job of the search committee is to take all the applicants, look at the resumes, do interviews, and that pool that you have, give your best candidates to the select board. The select board at that time will interview them and decide whether or not they're going to appoint one of those people. And the select board may say, you know what, I don't think these people should take a position. It's not what we're looking for. At
Okay.
that time, the select board can say no. The search committee's not hired them.
oh, we understand that.
Yeah.
So
But we're
we
also
just-
taking a lot of pride and care in what we're
Absolutely.
doing and making sure that whatever choice we're going to make as far as providing you with options is going to be the best for what happens at the fire department and is what's going to be what starts to rebuild what's going on at the fire department. And so that is why we are taking our time, and that is why we have been very careful about who we're looking at and who we're talking to and clarifying when we have questions
Yep.
and what have you.
And I understand that, I get all that, very much so. But again, we need to look at, so we can move forward with the position. So we make sure that we have leadership in place, either before or soon after our current chief is not there. So that's really what we need to look at. And I said, that's why I said, so the interview process is, that's it. You look at the resume, you interview them once, you may say that you want to go to a second interview. Maybe you want to go to a third interview, maybe you're not sure you want to follow up with someone on a third interview. But at some point, the names need to be brought forward to the select board.
Sure. I mean, I want you to understand, we're not dragging our feet, you know,
I don't
as
think
people
you are at all.
as
And I
people
don't-
are coming in, we're reviewing them, we're meeting several times a week.
Yep.
We've met basically every week, and so it's just, I think we're trying to be very thoughtful and careful about what we're doing, so.
And I hope that you're not taking what I'm saying any different than, I understand that completely. And I know that's what the search committee is doing. I was on the search committee for the police chief. It's very time consuming, it's very demanding. A lot of information comes at you, at one particular time, as we get down to interviewing and things like that. I get that, I understand that. So please, I don't think I'm taking anything away from the search committee at all. But on the other side, we need to at least have dates so we can look at a time frame so we can prepare for what we need to do.
Can we look at a date then, as far as,
I was just looking. March 21st, which is our second meeting, gives 5 weeks from the closing date.
okay?
So so the date closes on a Monday,
Mhm.
so it's a full 5 weeks from that closing date. Is that something the committee feels that they are comfortable doing? If not, then I would definitely say April 4th would be
I think it's doable in that March 21st range. If for some reason we had some influx of applicants at the last minute, we would communicate back to you and say we needed additional time, but I think March 21st is reasonable for us to communicate back to either our finalists or what have you.
And I think other, also too, it's helpful to the applicants, because
They're not in limbo.
they're not in limbo, because you may say, well, last time people
No,
like, no,
yeah.
when are you
No,
gonna be
we're-
filling
yeah,
the position?
we're aware of
'Cause they may be looking at other jobs too, and they'll wanna pass something up if, you know, if they wait too long, or if I missed that, how I would have known it's gonna take so long, so.
Absolutely.
But everybody, I mean, the search committee, I'm very pleased with the people that are on the search committee, without a doubt, so.
It's a good group, a good working
Yep.
group, a good collaborative group,
Yep.
and we all have the same mission. So it's been a really smooth process in that sense.
All right, so I'm just going to say that we will reconvene with the committee on March 21st
Very good.
for either candidates or we got nothing.
Okay.
Well,
Communication.
Are we asking for candidates at that time?
The goal is candidates,
The goal
and I
is
think that we
candidates.
do have potential in what we have, but I'm not going to say definitively either way because we're not done. So, but the goal would be candidates on or before even March 21st.
Perfect. I'm happy with that.
21st would be before, right?
I wouldn't say before.
I wouldn't say before. 21st is our
21st, our meeting.
is our
the week
second
before.
meeting, so, because I wouldn't, if we give you to the 4th, that cuts you by 2 weeks, which is 3 weeks, that's not,
Yeah, that's not going to work. The 21st is
21st.
much more reasonable.
And again, I do stress that the committee's responsibility is to bring names to us from the group of people that we have as applicants. So, you know, you may reckon,
Yeah.
at least, I think we said at least two or three. We asked for a number, I think, at the beginning.
yes.
Well, can we be clear on how many you're expecting at this point?
You said 3.
I think we say three, so we're
We
looking
had
at
said 3.
three people
Okay.
that would come forward. And again, it doesn't mean that those people will be appointed to that position, but you brought forward that this is the best 3 people that we have from our pool of applicants. Great, we'll review them and say, yes, this is great, or no, they're not what we're looking for.
You got it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Alrighty, sorry Dave, we ran a little long on you, come on up.
Something.
I know, that's what I was thinking.
Visual aids on everything.
I like visual aids.
What can I help you out with at this point? We know there's utility cuts on East Street. There's been a couple of recent ones. South Hadley District 2, District 1, sorry. Can't think, I haven't had a good night's sleep in a week, so bear with me. District 1 just cut another one in near Acrebrook. There was a water main leak. But the 2 other connections in that area are water connection services. Installed at the cost of the homeowners by contractors. Actually, both of the ones in the area that we're speaking of, the homeowners are contractors and did their own work. And we had trouble with both of those patches. We've been there numerous times. The one near 226 East Street was patched twice by us, the trench settled, with asphalt. And then, we were still getting all kind of complaints on noise and problems and everything else. We went back there 2 more times and spray patched it, and we're still getting complaints on that one. The 180, the closer on the other side of the hill, again, we noticed that one ourselves, and I don't have documented complaints on that one, other than about a month ago or so, don't hold me to the date. we received an inquiry from Senator Lester's aide about a pothole in that area creating a lot of noise. And I said, there's no potholes on that street at the time. There is now. But at the time, my guys are pretty much on it all the time for open potholes. There were none when I drove it. It was just the old trench patches. The one that I'm sure you're hearing the complaint on now, we noticed it. We were not happy with it originally. We contacted the contractor, Bousquet, who installed it. He repaved it, but then he left it high. Now there's a bump on it. Instead, originally it had settled, now there's a bump because they paved it high. We went back there with our mill because we were not happy with it. It was getting late in the season, and we tried to shave off the top to get it a little smoother on that one. And it's, again, reasonably presentable. It's not, doesn't take your tire off when you hit it. It's not like a pothole. It doesn't cause damage to your vehicle. Is it perfect? No, it's not. But trying to patch any asphalt surface after the fact is extremely difficult. Under ideal conditions, you can get them pretty close. Never perfect. That's why the state has a 5-year moratorium on doing utility cuts in a brand new road. They assume that they're going to make you wait till almost a third of the life or half of the life of that pavement before you cut it, because of the difficulty in getting a good patch. And it's extremely difficult on a road like East Street where you've got wheel ruts. When you've got the wheel rut in there, you cut a utility patch. When you re-roll it, it rolls flat to the high points and not to the low point of the wheel rut. So now you got a bump that where you're driving down the wheel rut, it jumps up, and that gives you noise.
With the big trucks, right?
Especially with the trucks. It's more noticeable at high speeds, but I can show you almost every road in town. I can show you bumps that will make that kind of noise. The good news is East Street is coming up on repaving soon, hopefully. It was scheduled for fiscal year 2005 to 26, but that was based on just Chapter 90 monies. Chris has been trying to give us a little extra funding with town funds, and we're trying to move those schedules up by a year. So it theoretically could be as early as next spring. We're a little bit ahead this year, but we do this by pavement management, basically. We run it, everything's on the pavement management schedule. You can see East Street is way up the top of the list as far as what the pavement management is saying. It's a busy street, one of our highest traffic in town. We've got to keep that one at a good level of service, otherwise they fall completely apart when you go through a season like we did this last week. As you probably see, there's potholes everywhere. Opening up on East Street, New Ludlow Road, Morgan. New Ludlow's another one that's coming up on the list. We've been sort of buying time with that one with some tricks and extra tools to try to save money. But again, pavement management sort of selects which ones are next in line, and then we try to fit. I put a small spreadsheet together so I can manipulate what fits for our schedule, because different types of road reconstruction requires different efforts on our part. We do all of the prep, and if we're doing a full depth reclamation, we're doing all the grading, all the compacting, raising, changing grades, whatever we have to do. It's very labor intense on our department. We've got to do the engineering ahead of time, make sure we get all the grades right. If it's just a mill and overlay, it's mostly contractors. It's a little easier.
I got a question on that. The contractors, when they cut into the pavement, is there a permit involved? And do you go back out and inspect it and make sure, or somebody from the department go out and inspect it and make sure they did it correctly?
we tried to. There was no permit taken on these. We've been discussing the permit process for a while.
Where do they draw the permit? With the building inspector here, or is it through the?
It would be through us, but there's still a few open loose ends that I don't think we've ever worked out with Chris as far as fees. Originally, when we asked, I mean, the first time I asked for this, it was probably 2002, 2003 area, and then it sort of got dropped. We get busy. I re-asked again, and the last time I know that I met with Ed Ryan was still alive. I met with him in his office. We've never worked out if there's going to be a fee or anything like that. Chris, have you thought about that at all? And there's a few other areas that I wanted to talk to you about tonight as well. On busy streets, you can require anything that you want. We can make them do a full depth pavement section with a paver, but if you do that, you're putting a severe burden on the person that's got to do one water connection. Yeah, you're gonna make the whole section of the road a little smoother and a little better, but are you really? Is it really worth the inconvenience to the public? Because a lot of times all you're doing is chasing the bump down the street a little bit.
I think right now with all these complaints we're getting about it, I think it's inconvenience for the residents who live nearby and listen to those trucks do it. So that's why I was asking you, do you go out and inspect it after the contractors finish it? Do they call you up without a permit? Do they call you up and say, I'm done on East Street?
We
go
out and look at everything. I mean, like I said, that one did not have a permit. We were unhappy with the quality of the workmanship. We called.
You told the contractor that?
Yes, and they repaved it, and we repatched it as well. And believe me, on both of those, we've spent a lot of money from our department going back, spray patching, trying. It's, like I said, it's the nature of the beast though. When you put a utility cut through a road, there's so many variables that affect that patch.
As soon as you open it up, you know, it comes down.
Freeze thaw, I understand that.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing, there's an opening to it, so when you get
Water,
water, when you get water,
It's
freeze.
difficult to do the patching, but then there's also the materials that are underneath it in the subgrade. If the materials are wet, the best thing to do is to put back the same material so that the subgrade underneath the road is all uniform. Worst case is the soils are wet, you have to throw them away, now you're bringing in stone or gravel, and that gravel's got a different permeability than everything else around it. Now, when the water comes through, and I can show you a perfect example, great timing, on Crescent Street, you can see where there was a utility trench where highway years ago probably put a trench through, and they probably backfilled the pipe with stone. Well, what happens is that stone is more permeable than the surrounding grade. The water, like we had over the last week, gets into the pavement, goes down. It goes down quicker through the stone. All the pavement around it rises up. Now you got a 3-inch depression where that utility patch went through, because it's not uniform subgrade. Even though the surface might have been flat when they paved it,
Everything looked nice in the summer.
everything's moving in differential movement, and is causing all kind of problems. So utility patches are a whole different level of patching. On your street, 10 years ago, we did 1 million patches. We probably patched a few hundred tons of patching. The highway department did. We didn't have the money to do the full reconstruction of the roadway at the time, but that street was getting surface delamination. What the top layer was coming undone in one part. It was miserable to drive on, potholes everywhere. What we did is we milled out sections, and it was patchwork quilt, but we were able to do those pretty smoothly. It didn't ride too bad. I don't know if you remember what it looked like before we paved it, but it's a little easier if you've got a flat surface to try to patch that. If the surface is doing one of these, it's an impossibility to try to get it smooth.
Reality is, if you look anywhere, any town, any city throughout the state, I mean, when they cut into a road and they come back and they fill it in and they asphalt over it, there's not one that's perfect. Like you said, even if it's perfect, when they finish it up, after everything settles and things change a little bit, 6 months, a year down the road, it's not. And you see that everywhere, regardless of where you go. I mean,
And if you want to see the root of the entire problem is right here. If you want to look at these graphs, It's been in my, if you can understand the pictures here, the green line is the funding, our funding source over the years, Chapter 90, okay? And in years past, we never used to get any money. Chris has been trying to give us some local monies and increase our local funding in the last few years. But so the green line is the Chapter 90 monies that we get each year. The big trough is after the big dig, and the state can deny that they didn't cut our funding, but they did. And you can see our resources or our revenues went down, or monies available to spend on paving went down. What happens immediately after that? In about 2007 range, our average PCI, which is pavement condition index, 100 being perfect, 0 being better get your four-wheeler going because you're not going to get through the road. Our average PCI went from a 70, dropped down to the, 50s, and it went down almost to 42s. Got an old one here, sorry. Got a better one to look at. The black line you see is the pavement cost, asphalt cost, what we pay per ton. So what should have happened from about 2000, we were paying $28 a ton for asphalt. In the year 2018, 2000, whatever, we're paying nearly 70. We should have doubled the Chapter 90 money just to keep up with inflation. We didn't have any increase except for when Governor Baker came in around 2015. And a year before that, I think Governor Patrick gave us a little extra money because we had a bad year like this year is going to be with potholes. He gave us some extra pothole money. And then one year, Governor Baker came in and gave us $300 million instead of $200 million to divvy up between the entire state. Other than that, the slight variations you see are because of road mileage change. The way Chapter 90 formula is derived, it goes road mileage, population, and trip generation. And those three factors are a percentage of that 200 million for each. They divvy it up for each city and town based on those factors. So there's slight variations. We'll see slight variations. If we added a road like we had Munsing and we added Maximilian, we get a little bit more money because we got more road miles, but it's not super significant. The big numbers are when he went and gave us an extra 100 million in 1 year. But you can see that we had extra money in the year 2015, and Chris has been giving us some extra money as well. You can start seeing the PCIs come back up. And what I'm cautioning is we're doing our best with the pavement management to try to select the roads that need it the most and keep the good roads as good as we can. If we start pulling roads out of sequence for repaving, all of that is going to go down the tube. And I know it's your job to listen to people's complaints, but it's my job to try to take care of the whole town as best I can with the funds we have. And we don't have enough funds because it's like we're stretching every penny as far as we can.
Dave, I'm sorry, how many miles of road?
We have about 60 miles of road, a little over that if you count 202, but 60 miles that we're responsible for. If you want round numbers and you want to know what we need to spend, just to put a Band-Aid, and I'm talking a 2-inch milling, which is a Band-Aid on our roads. That's not adequate to handle truck traffic like East Street. I can't afford to build East Street the way it should be with the truck traffic that's on it. Because it would cost us, let me go back to the easy scenario. 2 inches, about a mile of road, it costs us $150,000 for that mile, okay? That road lasts us, let's say 15 years nowadays. So basically, every year that mile of road ages is costing the town $10,000.
How much is the cost of the facility?
$150,000 to do a 2-inch overlay. That isn't to fully rebuild the road. That's just a Band-Aid like your driveway. 10,000 per mile is what each year is costing you on every road. And if you've got 60 miles of road, 60 times 10,000. If you wanted to keep everything in a perfect shape, in perfect order, at a 15-year cycle, that's assuming we're gonna get 15 out of every road, 15 years, you'd have to spend $600,000 a year.
Well,
We get about 270 in chapter 90.
some roads deteriorate
Quicker.
quicker than others just because of.
Definitely, but keep in mind, that's only the Band-Aid. That doesn't count bridge repairs, that doesn't count storm drain repairs. That's only the 2-inch top layer that we're putting on.
Needed and.
We're painting it black.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a huge problem. It's not just our problem, it's statewide. The problem is there's not enough money to go around, and there hasn't been, and that's why the decline in the PCI, the conditions of all the roads. And I can take you around town everywhere and show you roads on Pleasant Street in front of Steve Nally's house that there's bumps just as big and loud and whatever as the one on East Street. That's another one that's coming up soon, and we're trying to knock that one out. I can tell you when that one's coming. Pleasant Street is this year. And again, there's other factors that we have to coordinate with. Now we've got to give, like Eversource, formerly Bay State Gas or Columbia Gas, notice that we're doing the roads in advance, so they have time to raise all the structures, and they're planning on redoing any mains or trying to get their utility work done in advance of us going in. So, in fact, I've already given them the 2-year outlook for this year. Every winter they ask us, what roads are you working on in the next couple of years? So we've already done that. And these roads are on their schedule and on their hit list, but they've got to start thinking about getting their utilities done in advance. So
that's what you talk about when you talk about if we decide to say, no, take that all money.
I mean, we
let's
can
do
go
Main
on,
Street, you know?
yes, I mean, we can go on and try to spray patch it again, but again, how much effort do we want to put in just moving the bump down a little bit? Because it's, when you've got these wheel ruts in, and that's what I was going to show you with the visual aids, it's really difficult to do a patch. I don't care who it is. I mean, in fact, I even brought a contractor out to look at those from Indus, formerly Seal Coating. They do all kind of things. The only thing they don't do is infrared patch. And I've tried one infrared patch here on 202. We got called in to fix and repair an old sewer utility crossing up on 202. That was before they, do you remember when the last time they overlaid 202, Chris? That was 5 years ago, 6 years
I
ago?
was thinking 4 to 5.
Yeah, I don't have it on my pavement management because we don't manage 202. But it was around there, and before that, it was just a couple years before that, they were harassing me and Chris. We were getting nasty grams from Mass DOT about a utility trench patch from our sewer line when they crossed. And again, it's difficult to patch a road and make it seamless and make that patch disappear. So we, at the time, I didn't have the milling head. Yeah, it was before we bought the milling head, so it was a few years back. We didn't have the milling head for the Bobcat. We had done some renting them for Amber Street, but we hadn't purchased our own at that time. And I went and elected to try an infrared patch. And the contractor was Hanford. They brought an infrared machine, but it was a small one. It took forever. It didn't work well. We tried top dressing it with asphalt, raking it in, and it
Fell apart.
it didn't last the way I would like to see it last. So I would be a little bit reluctant about trying it on that one. I mean, maybe a different contractor with a bigger infrared machine. But again, how much money do we want to spend on rideability?
Well, I think reality is, just listening to you talk, it's never going to be perfect.
No.
It's to a point of saying, okay, we can live with it like this for now until we have the opportunity to pave the road.
I can try to spray patch it if you'd like. I mean, I'll do it one more time. both of those in the same day. But if we're gonna do something, let's all agree on a plan, so we're not going back there 15 times. Because every time we go out there, I need 2 detail officers for every operation, and it's like minimum 4 hours, talking just the police details alone are $500. If I've got to go back there and mill or prep it, and then, or pave it, mill it, pave it, come back the next day and do any other process to it. It's getting expensive when you add our time, the police time. It's not a cheap, easy area to patch. That's on
East Street.
on East Street. It's very busy, it's blind with the hills there. It's a bad area.
I guess I look at how much better can it get? And so if you go in there and you figure whatever you think is the best fit for that area, how much better is it gonna be after you get done doing it? Is it worth the money to spend on it at that point?
It's hard to say, because there was, just this week, there was a big pothole that opened up right up near the ostrich farm. And we might fix the utility patch here, but she's gonna hear the trucks going over the
Next one down.
pothole now that was just repaired this week.
I mean, the more snow, the more freezing rain and stuff that we get, it's just gonna kill our roads.
The ultimate solution
The plowing and
is,
sanding, it just eats away at the blacktop.
and these freezing thaw cycles are killing us. I mean, in every other town too, I'm hearing horror stories driving everywhere, and don't go down that road. You know, it's like, I mean, I had some, I was called, I had 3 calls last week for people that damaged rims on Brook Street in Lovelands, right over the line. We did the newer section, we did Chicopee, or Taylor Street section, which connected onto Chicopee Street and Carver. That was all new and reconstructed just a few years back, and I knew that it was on the other side of the line. I was just telling them, call Ludlow, that's not ours, that's Brook Street in Ludlow. And in fact, one was my neighbor, Bob Petruno, hit and damaged his rim on that same pothole. And I says, well, I've been sending everybody to Ludlow, that's across the line, so take a number. They, you know, in fact, my guy said they filled that pothole that was in Ludlow once because it was so bad. It's very close to the line, it's within a few feet. And they,
So Dave, at the East Street one where there's the noise complaint that we're getting to, when is the best time to try to address it seasonally to get it fixed? Can you put a patch on it now to calm it down, or we'll just blow apart because of
yeah, I wouldn't even touch it
waste of money,
until
right?
the spring.
In the spring, okay.
And if we're gonna try a spray patch, it's gotta be warm. It's gotta be like 50 degrees or
Okay.
warmer.
All right, thank you.
Otherwise, it's just not gonna
It's a
be.
waste of money.
The spray patch is nice because we can get it real thin, and we tried that. It's made it better on the one near 226. I could try milling a little bit more on the other one and then spray patch it, but again, now you're talking 2 operations, and is it really worth it, or should I just spray patch over it and do our best, say we did something, and we did our best at there, and just gotta wait until we repave the road. I mean, the problem is, we're stretching everything out before we can repave some of these roads that,
To me, and I get it, and I understand the noise, but to me, the first and foremost is the safety. Is it a safety issue?
no, it's not gonna damage a car, and that we're required to go out and fix right away. If we're told that there's a pothole and we don't go fill it, then it exposes the town
Whether
to excess.
not so damaging a car, you know, someone driving over it is not aware of it or something like that, is it gonna, does that have any effect on someone driving over it?
No, and I can show you 100 other spots in New Ludlow Road and Chicopee that are just as bad as the ones we're talking about right now. And same thing in South Hadley on New Ludlow Road. We're not alone, and again, this problem is much bigger than
No, I understand.
a utility trench patch. It's because we're not getting to these roads often enough. That's why the wheel ruts are so bad, but even the wheel ruts, I don't have the money to rebuild that road correctly. We're talking about a Band-Aid on that road with 2 inches. That's what we did 15 years ago. And it's because the wheel ruts are there because the structure's not heavy enough to carry the truck traffic that's on that road.
How about signage to warn people of the potholes? Slow down, potholes ahead, that type of thing.
When
Do
there's,
we have that available?
when there's bad frosties, we do put those out. There's usually one that opens up. That sometimes gets really bad on Amherst Street,
Yeah.
near the 130-ish area. We'll put a
I've seen them, that's why I'm asking you, yeah.
Certain areas.
Generally, we'll fill the potholes with coal patch every day. My crews have been out last 2 days trying to keep up with it. Some of the potholes we're filling every day because there's water in them, it's blowing them out. If you want to build a good pavement, drainage is the key. And unless you have perfect drainage, and when the weather's like it's been, it's difficult to control that water.
All right, thank you. Good education, thank you.
So,
I think all I can, and I'm speaking for myself, but is to kind of give the board what you believe to be an appropriate fix for it, a solution for the problem. And kind of look at it, I mean, I'm not gonna tell you to overspray it or do that or dig up. I don't know, that, you're the expert, so I'm looking for you to say, hey.
I'll be glad to, in the spring,
Yep.
go out there, look at it. If I think I can make it better with a mill, cutting it down a little bit, making the high spot, taking the high spot out, and doing a spray patch, we'll do that. We have the spray patcher, we use it all the time in instances like that. We made the 226 one a little better with it. It's not perfect, but it's like I said, it's really, really difficult. When you get those wheel ruts, the roller follows the high points, and then even though you've cut a new section out and patched it, now you got a nice flat section up here, but you got to come up out of the wheel rut, over that thing and back down. So it's challenging. It really is to get it where it doesn't make a noise.
So we'll come back in the spring sometime and, you know, you can go back to the board and kind of let us know what you feel is the best and the most appropriate way
To try to minimize that. We've got other work to do out there, and we're going to be doing some utility corrections ourselves. There's a few manholes that have settled. That's due to normally the brick course that's right under the steel structure. Fails, the salt eats it, and then the structure settles down a little bit. In fact, it was so bad, I mean, believe me, I don't want to be, I don't know the word I'm looking for here. I care about the residents, and I care about driving that road and having it as smooth as I can make it. I told my guys just about a month ago to go and put coal patch over the top of the manholes because they're settled down so much. Cars are hitting it, and it's making a lot of noise, and it's creating a problem. That it doesn't stay because it's only a thin and it's cold and it's just coal patch. But it was a temporary fix till we have time to go cut the structure out, reset the manhole frame and cover, repatch around it. It won't be a perfect patch until we remill and repave that entire road. But those are all the things we have to do ahead of paving the road. And I would have already had it done this year because it was on my to-do list, but we've been just booked with trees. And we have put a world of hurt on the trees and taken a lot of them down that were really bad. Took one down in your street this week, Jen. Your mother was asking what we were doing.
Well, it set my rooster off, so I had to fix up.
It was part of the pine tree that had fallen before, and
You bring a crane in for that?
They did, it was really cool, the guy was flying
yeah, up in the air.
in a harness. It's kind of cool to watch.
That's good when you're
I think we realized, Dave, that definitely the highway department has their hands full, a lot of different projects going on, a lot of different things that the department does, so I definitely appreciate you coming in and kind of giving us some knowledge.
Yep, no, I'm not ignoring any particular street. I will do our best. It's a matter of finding the time. And
Well, at this point, we can't even deal with it till spring anyway, so.
no, I wouldn't, you're really opening up a can of worms trying to do anything at this time of the year. It would probably make the situation worse. In the spring, when it warms up a little bit, we can get some hot patch or spray patch, or mill and spray patch, or whatever, some combination. Unless you'd like to try, we could try another contractor with a bigger infrared machine, but I didn't have good luck with it in the past, so
I'm comfortable waiting.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do anything, because like I said, with plowing and salt and sanding, all that stuff that goes along with anything you do now, which is gonna deteriorate, it's not gonna hold.
The road needs to be rebuilt is the bottom line, and until it's repaved, it's not going to really ride nicely. And even a brand new road, it's so easy to make a mistake in asphalt paving. I can show you on Kendall Street that if a truck comes, when he's backing up the dump into the paver, if he hits the paver too hard, you're going to get a little bump. And most people won't notice it, they won't see it, I see it, and it annoys the heck out of you, but it's a difficult challenge to do, and we don't have incentives like they do on the highways for ride roughness factors. They usually give a bonus to contractors.
Highways start to fall apart after a couple years after it's been paid too. Like you said, it's New England, you know, when you start putting salt and sand on roads and stuff like that, it needs to weigh out. But again, you know, thanks for coming in, I know we have other things to.
Okay, I'll get out of here then. I will get back with Chris and you guys, let you know what we're doing, what we're trying that in the spring again, but to really make it good, we've got to repave it, and it's scheduled. It's on the horizon. Short, hopefully we can boost it up because of the extra money that Chris has been trying to get us. If it goes through town meeting, hopefully we can boost the schedules up, get a few more roads done this year, and then maybe next year it'll be right first project out.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
All right.
Good night.
Okay. I don't have anything in front of us, so I'm guessing there's no citizen participation. Alrighty. We've already gone over due frame rentals. Do you have any other correspondence for us, Chris?
The only other topic was we received a letter from MSBA regarding the statement of interest that was submitted regarding the high school. Basically, we will not be considered for funding for this year, but they are suggesting we resubmit for the FY 2022 funding statement.
Okay. And I'm assuming the school has a copy of that as well?
I would believe so.
FY22 or FY23?
Well, the applications are due by, I believe, the end of April of '22. And I believe we go through the selection process starting around August or September is when they start going around and considering the applications that are submitted.
So let's move on to departmental reports because we have a meeting at 7, we have an executive at 7 o'clock, so let's see how fast we can go. Has everybody had a chance to read them?
Yes.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion that we accept the department reports.
I'll second Rick's motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Maintenance warrants?
You have 5 warrants in front of you. Warrant number 45 dated 1/21/22. The amount of $424,105.21. That's a payroll warrant. Warrant number 46 dated 1/21/22. The amount of $163,442.52. That's the maintenance warrant that goes with the payroll warrant. You have warrant number 47 in the amount of $377,372.28 dated January 28th, 2022. That is a bill paying warrant. You have warrant number 48 dated 2/4/2022 in the amount of $442,896.09. That is a payroll warrant. And warrant number 49 dated 2/4/2022 in the amount of $174,923.61. And that is the maintenance warrant that goes with the payroll warrant.
Taking a motion?
I make a motion that we approve and sign the maintenance warrant number 45, 46, 47, 48, and 49.
I'll second Rick's motion.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, ambulance rates.
On an annual basis, we get a form from CompStar asking if we want to increase our ambulance rates by a certain percentage. And what they do is they provide what the surrounding communities are charging for their rates. And the question is, does this board wish to consider increasing the rates to an average of what the surrounding communities are, or do you wish to just keep the rates where they are?
What is the question is, what's the difference between where we are now and surrounding communities?
I want to say we're not the highest in the area. We're probably around, traditionally, we're probably around the 75th, about 75% of what the average is for the surrounding communities.
When I look at the numbers, yeah, around that, we're not the highest, we're not in the middle either.
So we're between middle and high,
75.
75? Do you have any thoughts before I let them come together?
Is there a need for it?
Well, that's,
Is there a need for it? Is the ambulance service functioning with the current rate?
I noticed Lieutenant Oz in the audience, maybe he could pitch it out there.
He has a higher knowledge on the billing cycle of the ambulance and dealing with ComStar than I do, so that's why I asked if he would attend, so that way he can answer all those questions, because he actually has knowledge of why we should increase or why we shouldn't in what areas. And to answer your question, what would be beneficial or whatever for us, and he would, I believe, have the answer for that.
The benefit to it is the fact that you can only get back so much. It's a fixed fee from Medicare, Medicaid, whereas other insurance companies, you need to bill the max that you can bill to get the percentage. So if you're billing and getting 10%, just to use roundup numbers, if you're getting a 10% reimbursement rate for what you bill off 1,000, you're getting $100. If you're billing 2,000, you're getting $200. But you can't get that other percentage unless you're billing the highest part. So every department in the area, there was recently a survey that went around between all the departments, looking at where they were in their ComStar's top 50 across the state who was our billing companies, and everybody is trying to get to that maximum billing rate. Chris is absolutely correct, we are not the highest. I believe the highest in the area right now is Belchertown, because they recently looked at those same rates and went up to that rate. I know Chicopee, South Hadley, District 1, District 2, Ludlow, everybody has this on their agenda to move up to the higher rate so that they can get the maximum reimbursement.
So my question is, do we need the maximum reimbursement to fund the ambulance service?
Need is a word. You can say, do we need? We don't need to do anything. We haven't changed our rates since 2018, yet things have changed in the last 4 or 5 years that, really drive this, that it's time for us to put our rates up to what it should be.
So has cost of business gone up for the ambulance department?
Astronomically. With COVID,
Well, taking COVID out of it, because COVID's not going to be around forever.
well, it's like everything in life, everything's going up cost-wise. In the last 4 or 5 years, costs are going through the roof. COVID has tripled and quadrupled some of our supplies. Right now, it's amazing what we're paying even for standard gloves and alcohol preps and anything to do with anything COVID related. I needed to actually purchase a case of those type of masks that Micheline has on. At a cost of about $500 a case. Right? It's through the roof, and we need to get whatever we can get.
How much are we bringing in on our current runs?
How much are we bringing in?
If we don't raise our rates, how much, I'll call it revenue, but I'm not necessarily sure that it's actually revenue since we never break even. How far off operating costs are we?
All right. I just reconciled January's, okay? We billed out $95,000 worth of ambulance bills. The insurance companies and Medicare automatically reduced our bills by about $65,000. This is 1 month. Okay, so what we're finding is if we don't keep increasing our rates, it's going to get to a point where we're not even going to make enough money to be able to keep funding the ambulance. It's all going to lay on the taxpayers. That's what's going to end up happening. We're going to have to create subsidies to the ambulance department in order to keep it running at the level that our residents are used to it running.
So you're saying,
Yeah, it was a net of about $30,000.
okay, I'm making sure I did that math
Oh,
right.
yeah, you're about right. Okay? And I can show you, if you want, I can bring in, at the next meeting, a cover sheet that ComStar creates that shows what's being billed out, what's being written off by Medicare and the insurance companies. And it's nowhere near what we think we're bringing in. We're lucky if over the course of a year, we bring in $330,000 to operate.
I mean, I know that the insurance write-off is quite steep. I mean, my own ambulance trip, I pay 10% of what I was charged, is what my cost is. The ambulance, my insurance was paying half, I think. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So really, by raising our rates, I understand the logic behind it. But is there a breakdown from insurance separate from Medicare? Because we can only collect so much from Medicare. And then we're done, we have to write off whatever else there is.
And Medicaid.
I consider those the same, any many.
What I will do is I will forward to the board January's reports, okay, that shows the amount that was committed out, billed out, what was written off, and it's broken down by Medicaid, Blue Cross, the various insurance companies, okay? So you can see what is occurring when the insurance company is looking and taking that bill and deciding how much they're going to pay.
All right, so can we table this till next meeting, is that?
Yep.
Does that work for you guys? So we have time to review
Yeah, just to
that?
review that.
Yeah, those are good points. We were talking about Medicare and Medicaid and what they're paying, that's not gonna change, Jen said that's gonna stay the same, so, really look at the insurance companies and, depending on what people have for insurance, what they have insurance too. It's the cost, we look at things and this board looks at a lot of different things when it comes down to money and stuff like that.
You will not be hurting an individual person by raising the rates. You will only be charging the insurance company more and thereby getting, as a return, a better percentage. Okay, because everything's, billable, but you're only going to get a certain percentage of that from other than Medicare and Medicaid. You're only going to get a percentage of that. And that's why there's a suggestion to raise those rates.
If you raise the rates, so if I just throw a number out there, the cost is $1,000 and you're charging 70% now, or my insurance company pays 70% and I have to pay 30%. But then you say, well, we're gonna up our rates. So now,
It is an increase to the
you
taxpayer.
charge $1,200, well, the insurance company's still paying the 70% and I'm still paying the 30%. So the individual is paying more.
Right.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily, because a lot of people have what's considered a deductible, $50 deductible. We've seen it in some of the reports that we reviewed, okay? What'll happen is we'll charge $1,200. The insurance company will look at what the average rate is in our area and pay reduce it by $500. I'm just using these as examples. Okay, so they're only going to pay $700. They end up paying $650 because the plan that people are on requires a $50 copay. Okay, that's the problem. Is each plan is geared differently.
Yeah, well, every insurance, as I said, every insurance company's different, every plan's different, every person's different, so you can't, so it, just saying, to say it's not gonna cost the consumer any more money isn't true.
It'll cost the consumer more money because their monthly rates will go up by the insurance company. If we increase our rates, they're paying out more money, which they then turn around and increase their rates by a certain percentage that the individual has to pay to be on that plan.
Well, like I said, if my medical insurance only covers 70% of an ambulance run, and I'm responsible for the 30%. If the cost of that goes up, the insurance company will pay more, but also the individual will pay more.
Somehow.
Yeah.
It's usually more,
Yes, we have pressure.
it's usually more of what Chris started with, is that if you have a $3,000 a year deductible, and let's say it's January 15th and we transfer you in the ambulance, the first amount of payment that the insurance company is going to make is going towards that deductible.
And I get that, and I understand how the insurance works, I'm just saying, everybody's insurance is different.
True.
So, depending on what you have, and it's just, and the only point I'm making that it could cost individuals more money, that's all.
I can tell you just real quick that I believe 95.33% of our revenue is Medicare, Medicaid, Blue Cross. So you can raise your rates all you want, you're only going to get what you can get. But that's what 95% of our revenue is in the town right now.
So just what you just said, Lieutenant, what is the benefit of raising our rates?
Well, once again, when it comes to Blue Cross, you get percentages. Medicare, Medicaid are the only two that are locked in, but there are the VA, the facilities, the providers, the rest of the things. It is a smaller percentage of what we take in, but we should at least be getting the maximum of what we can take in.
It's 5%, it's 5%, right?
3, 4, yes.
95% is the Medicaid, Medicare, we're going to call 5%.
Yep. Including the Blue Cross percentage, which is 22% of our revenue. So that would help out.
So we'll table that until our next meeting, and you'll get that information for us. So let's,
If the board doesn't have a problem, I'd just like to get the common victualler licenses approved, and then postpone everything on the agenda for the next meeting.
I would like to quickly address item 6. That has been a big bone of contention, so I'd like to address that so people do understand where we are in this process.
Well, do we want to invite waste management to the next meeting?
Well, we already invited them to one meeting, we didn't.
What I'd like to do,
So-
it's just, what we're talking about, what we're common
Let's
vic
do common vic
licenses.
first.
That.
Okay, there's 3 common vic licenses. It's number 22-22, Granby Preservation Society, 250 State Street, Granby, Mass., expiring December 31st, 2022. The fee is $25. Again, I'm going to recommend that we waive that fee as they are a nonprofit. Then we have number 22-23, Ryan Voiland, doing business as Red Fire Farm, 7 Carver Street, Granby, Mass. 01033, expiring December 31st, 2022, fee $25. And the third one is number 22-24, Bumpy's Natural and Organic Foods, 77 West State Street, Granby, Mass. 01033, expiring December 31st, 2022, fee $25.
Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve and sign the common vic license number 22-22 for the GPA and expiring on 12/31/22 and a waiver of the fee. Number 22-23 23, expiring on 12/31/22, and 22-24, expiring on 12/31/22.
I'll second Rick's motion.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So quickly, item 6, waste management. Yes, I would like you to have them here at our next meeting. I think Glenn Wood, I've seen him respond to a few Facebook posts. It's getting out of hand. I understand that there are difficulties, but as a community, we do pay for the service, and we expect a service to be had. And if that service is not had, and we're seeing, I mean, Kathy has been sending us that list daily, we're seeing repeat addresses not being picked up. So I would like Waste Management here so that we can discuss this with them and find a resolution.
So, and I think the message to all residents should be to, if they're having an issue or a problem with their household waste collection, they should be contacting the select board office. Because I think it's our responsibility to follow up with Waste Management on that. And what I'd like to do is have a list of all the issues that people are having, and list them not generally, but specifically what each one is, and send that list to Waste Management, showing our concerns. Understandably, everybody is, struggling with, people being out sick because of COVID and other issues happening. But also, as Jen talked about, we're paying for a service. Our residents are paying for a service, and they expect that service to be done right. And I think that's our responsibility as a select board, is to hold
Hold them accountable
Hold
for
them
the
accountable.
service that we've contracted for.
Absolutely. So I think we need to, them coming here is great, but I think there needs to be a letter put together, sent to them, and a formal letter at that, stating the issues and problems that we're having, and speaking to our contractor.
I mean, and I will say, the level of service differs greatly. We employ them for private pickup. My pickup is perfect. So to see that they are not giving our town contract the same considerations, it's upsetting.
When people know they're paying for a service and they're dealing with things that shouldn't be happening, people get frustrated. When people put their trash out and it doesn't get picked up, and the animals get into it, now there's debris all over everywhere, it becomes litter. They have to go up there, they have to clean it up and stuff like that. It gets very frustrating very quickly. And I know that and understand that. So again, we're expecting a certain level of service, and if we're not getting that, then we need to hold them accountable, just like anybody else would.
But I also would like to add on to that there are some days that something happens and the route isn't completed for some reason or other.
I understand it as well. Things
And that's all I'm
happen.
saying is
Too common
sometimes,
of an
if
occurrence.
it's bad weather, if it's really, really cold, we had some really cold weather, sometimes their equipment doesn't want to work. Okay? So those are outside people's controls, but I agree, if they're not getting their recycling picked up multiple weeks, if their trash is being ignored multiple weeks or multiple times, I agree. But it can't be, well, I put my trash out Monday morning, when I came home Monday night, it was still there. But what may have happened is the truck may have broke down. There may have been another issue. Those are the types of things that were sometimes, they'll be out there the next day to pick up or finish a route too, okay? People have to be understanding of issues that are outside people's control.
And I think people were for the longest time,
But-
but these occasions are becoming too common.
The more frequent.
Well, and
I'm
it's
seeing
also,
it happen over and over and over
And
again.
I don't have a problem
In
with
which
that,
case,
but
waste management needs to communicate with us.
But I'm just saying is sometimes things happen that are outside your.
I understand that, but as a company, it doesn't hurt to pick up the phone, call your customer, in this town, the town of Granby, the select board's office, and say, hey, this was our problem. We could then communicate that to our residents. If that is not being had, that's a breakdown. We need to discuss with waste management where the breakdown is occurring and how it's going to be resolved.
So therefore, they notify us one of the trucks broke down and will not be able to finish their route. Notification to select board, please send out a robocall, letting people know due to, vehicle issues, they will not be able to complete. However, they will be there tomorrow morning to pick it up. These people know. If not, they have no idea that they're coming back or not.
And again, I agree, but if we use the robocall too many times, I'm going to be honest with you, people, when they see that number come up, are not going to pick up, or they're just going to get the money.
Well,
And that happens.
and
And that happens.
that's on them, that's their
We've
choice.
made that,
But I'm just saying, that can happen. Okay, I'm just,
And I get that, and that's that person's choice not to pick up the phone or not. But at least we are doing our part by providing information. No one can ever say, well, you guys didn't tell us that. Well, that's not true. And if the information was sent out, if people choose not to listen to it, or check their voicemails, that's not them.
but I'm just saying.
So, I get that, but I think we, like I said, again, people are directly paying for that service.
so yes, if you could just send them a letter asking them, or an email asking them to meet with us at our next meeting, that would be fabulous. And we can get this decided. Is anybody-
Tuesday, the 22nd.
Tuesday, the 22nd, our next meeting.
Because Monday's a holiday.
Right, but before that, I'd like to have, again, all our information put together and sending them a letter with that information on it and what our concerns are, so they can come to this meeting and speak to what our concerns are and issues that we're having.
I would hope our field rep would do that. I mean, Kathy sends them daily. And she sends it right to the right person, so they know exactly what's happening.
But then I think too is that
we need to find a solution.
the board should come up with questions that we want answered.
I agree with that.
So that, what I would like to do, whoever's representative that comes to us is prepared to speak to what our questions are, what our concerns are, not that, well, let me look into it, I'll get back to you. These are our concerns now, I'd like for the answer.
And is there several routes? Because it seems like the same address seems to be coming, same areas, I should say.
There are several routes. As far as I
No,
know.
like Harris Street, Carver Street.
Because they're different days.
Yeah.
Everybody has, I don't know how they break it down, but, so, okay, we'll discuss that
Yeah, all
on
right.
the 22nd. Does anybody have anything really quick, because we really need to jump onto a different meeting?
Nope.
Okay. All right. In that case, I move to enter into executive session under Mass General Law 30A-21-A-2. And I don't remember which one that is, the exact wording, but we will only be returning to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Silva, aye.